For 40 years, China looked like the greatest economic success story on earth. A poor, isolated country became the world's factory, built cities bigger than countries, and lifted hundreds of millions out of poverty. But the same machine that created the miracle is starting to choke on its own success. Because the secret wasn't just cheap labor, exports, or discipline. Hidden underneath China's rise was a strange enigma. Local governments selling land, borrowing through shadowy companies, and turning apartments into the country's savings account. The engine made China rich, and now, slowly, it is becoming the trap nobody noticed early. The story begins in 1978. China was still poor. Most people lived in the countryside. Farms were controlled by collective systems. Factories were state-run. And then Deng Xiaoping made a bet that changed the world. He did not turn China into America. He did something more interesting. He allowed parts of capitalism to exist in a communist political system. Farmers were allowed to keep more of what they produced. Villages started small businesses. These were called township and village enterprises, and they became a bridge between farming and industry. Then came the special economic zones. The most famous was Shenzhen. Today Shenzhen looks like a city from the future. Back then it was a small fishing area near Hong Kong. China used it like a laboratory. Foreign companies could come in, factories could grow, workers could move in, ideas could be tested. And when it worked, China copied the model. This is the part everybody knows. Reforms, factories, exports, cheap labor, and incredible discipline. But the lesser known part is that China also created a competition between local officials. If your city grew fast, you looked successful. And if you looked successful, you could rise in the system. So every mayor, governor, and local official had the same mission: build, expand, grow. Then in 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization. This was like opening the floodgates. Western companies wanted cheap manufacturing. China had workers, ports, lands, and a government that could move fast. So the world supply chains bent to China. Toys, clothes, phones, furniture, electronics, everything started saying made in China. Cities exploded upwards. Roads, airports, bridges, high-speed rail, ports, and apartment towers appeared at the speed that almost no other country could match. Hundreds of millions of people moved from villages to cities. China's urban population went less from 1/5 in 1978 to roughly 2/3 today. For ordinary families, this was not just economics, it was emotional. A farmer's child could become a factory worker. A factory worker's child could go to university. A poor family could buy an apartment and feel like they had finally joined the modern world. That was the miracle. But here's where the story gets darker. Local governments in China did not have enough normal tax money to pay for all this growth, so they used land. They could convert land, lease it to the developers, and use the rising land prices as fuel. Developers built apartments, families bought them, local governments got revenue. That revenue funded roads, trains, and more construction. It became a loop. Land created money, money created construction, construction created GDP, GDP made officials look successful, then they needed more land. And when normal borrowing was not enough, local governments used special companies called local government financing vehicles. These companies could borrow money for projects without always making the debt look obvious on the official balance sheet. This is one of the most important hidden parts of the miracle. China was not building because it was rich. In many places it was becoming rich because it was building. In China, housing became more than shelter. It became the family bank. Many households stored their wealth in apartments. Parents bought homes for their children. Young men were often expected to own property before marriage. Developers sold apartments before they were even furnished. So property became a national belief system. Prices kept rising, so people believed they would keep rising. Developers kept building because people kept buying. Local governments kept selling land because developers kept building. But eventually the machine built too much. Some cities had apartments nobody lived in. Some developers owed too much. Some families had money trapped in homes that were losing value. And when the giant developer Evergrande collapsed, it was not just a company failing, it was a warning flare. The old engine was breaking. Now China is not collapsing, that is too simple. It is still a manufacturing superpower. It dominates batteries, solar power, electric vehicles, and a huge part of global supply chains. Its state still has enormous power. Its people still save a lot. Its factories are still world class. But the old model is slowing down. For decades, China grew around 10% per year. Now growth is closer to 4 or 5%. Debt has climbed from under 100% of GDP in 1990s to nearly 300% by 2025. The population is shrinking, the country is aging, youth jobs are harder to find, and housing, once the symbol of success, has become a weight on household confidence. The miracle did not disappear overnight. It turned into bills. So where does China go now? There are 3 possible futures. In the best case, China shifts from building empty apartments to building a stronger consumer economy. People earn more, they feel safer spending, local debt gets cleaned up, the country keeps leading in green technology and advanced manufacturing. In the middle case, which feels more likely, China keeps growing but slower. Not a crash, more like a heavy machine moving upward. In the worst case, housing keeps failing, families save even more, local governments cut spending, and China enters a long period of economic drag. The real question is not whether China can grow. It can. The question is whether it can grow without an old addiction: land, debt, construction, and property prices that only go up. Because China's miracle was real. It changed the world. It lifted families, built cities, and turned a poor country into an industrial giant. But every miracle has a cost. And China is now entering the chapter where the receipt finally arrives.